What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of our NFL season preview. Been off a few days, so we're back with another episode today. We're going to do the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you've seen any of the other episodes, you know what we do. We run through the highlights of the offseason, looking at their season this year, their additions, their subtractions, what we can expect on both sides of the ball, and what the season schedule looks like, and what the outlook for the entire season will be. Looking at the positional players, who can be the best, who's going to be a drop off, who's going to be the most improved, and looking if the team can make any improvements throughout the season. If you like what we're doing here, please hit that like button, hit the comment button, let me know what you like, what you don't like, and please hit that subscribe button. Enjoying doing this, want to continue doing it. So we'll get straight into it. I'll highlight as I go so you know where I'm at throughout the video. So we're doing the Steelers today. We'll start with last season. Last season, they were 9-7-1. They won 4 of their last 6. They were second in the AFC North and ended up playing the Kansas City Chiefs, which was just a bad matchup for them. Obviously, they got blown out in that game. Quick end to their postseason run and got right into the offseason thereafter. Also, throughout last season, the coaching changes that they ended up having was that Keith Butler is out as the defensive coordinator, so Terrell Austin steps up into that D coordinator role. They also hired Brian Flores as the linebackers coach and defensive assistant. One of the big changes is that Kevin Colbert, the GM's out, and they hire one of the in-house guys to promote him up to GM and probably keep him for many years into the future. So quick off-season rundown. All right, looking at last year's additions, or off-season additions, I should say. So they had the draft. We'll start with the draft. Everyone knew they were probably going to get a quarterback. They didn't know necessarily they were going to get Kenny Pickett with their first pick. They got him 20th overall, the homegrown quarterback out of Pitt College. And he's probably maybe the most pro-ready quarterback. That's the pro of him. The con is that the lack of perceived upside that's with him. He had small hands also. People talk about that. But he has a lack of an arm. He is athletic on the move, though, which, if you know what their offensive line is about, he definitely needs to be able to move. Ideal, looking into the future, he's probably a Cousins or Tannehill comp, which would be great for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they can get a career like that out of him. But the problem is there's reports already that he's running with the third stringers in minicamp. Yeah, we expected him to have growing pains and start off slow. But third stringers, that doesn't seem well to be starting off with. But, who knows? He still could be a starter by day one once they get into training camp and out of minicamp. So they got him. Then with their second pick, wrong color. Can't see that. Let me do black. Okay. With their second pick, they took George Pickens in the second round, 52nd overall, that wide receiver out of Georgia. He has outstanding on-field talent and is a team fit for sure in the slot. But, he may be the best pick in the entire draft. The problem is the injuries and the off-field stuff with his character, because he was projected first round after 2019 for sure. He's a vertical threat, spectacular catch. He had 2 drops and just 139 targets last year. He easily replaces James Washington, and he could compete with Chase Claypool for sure, because Claypool fell off last year. Best deep threat that the Steelers have had since Martavis Bryant. Then in the third round, they got DeMarvin Leal, the D tackle from Texas A&M. The upside with him is that he was a projected first-round pick coming into this year. He fell off greatly this year. He struggled versus the run. He tested poorly. So at this point, he's probably just going to be a rotational player at the 3 and 5 tech on this defense. That's great depth if you want to get depth for sure. So then looking at their key additions in free agency. Oh, sorry, one more draft pick. Calvin Austin, the speedster from Memphis, likely going to be the kick returner this year. I would assume. At some point, he had 1,000+ yards last 2 seasons, so another key addition to that wide receiver group. All right, looking at free agency, the big one, Mitch Trubisky. They get him on a 2-year contract, I believe. Likely to be the starter, I would assume, to start, and that's a very cheap contract. He was 29-21 in Chicago, but that was under Matt Nagy. Horrible offense over there. So he may come in and show what he can do compared to what he was doing in Chicago with that horribly run offense. So we'll see what he can bring. Uh, One good thing that he's coming in with this Matt Canada offense is the fact that he ran so many RPOs, and that's going to be perfect for Matt Canada and Mitch Trubisky working together. So we'll see what he can do. He looked great in that preseason game in Buffalo last year. So and in the regular season, I think he got in one game and looked great. So we'll see what he can do at the starting quarterback position. Possibly an upgrade compared to what they were getting from Big Ben over the last few years. Another key signing is that Miles Jack is in at the linebacker position. Upgrade over Spillane and Chaubert that they've had there, and will definitely put pressure on Devin Bush to perform. Devin Bush has not been what they expect him to be after being a first-round draft pick, and he has struggled mightily every year. So hopefully they can get some reliable linebacker play from Miles Jack. They re-signed Terrell Edmonds at the safety position, key bringing him back. They extended Minka Fitzpatrick, making him the highest paid safety in the league. Had to bring him back for sure, especially after trading all that draft capital to Miami a few years ago. They brought in James Daniels. He's probably signing him makes him probably the best O lineman that they have automatically. Um, a key signing that just happened here recently is that they brought in Larry Ogunjobi. Uh, he was very, very solid, very underrated for sure. He's bounced around all around the AFC North. They bring him in, going to be a key contributor on this D line for sure. Levi Wallace, bring him in from Buffalo. Key signing again. They let Joe Hayden go, and now he's probably going to be their CB1, I would assume, in this defense. He was CB1 whenever Tre'Davious White was out in Buffalo. So now we'll look at their losses. Had a few losses this year. Obviously, Big Ben's out. He finally retired. He was a shell of himself compared to what he was years ago. So we want to see what that offense can do with a new quarterback in there for sure. Released Joe Chaubert after trading for him. They've had linebacker issues forever. They declined the fifth-year option on Devin Bush. He has not performed, like I said, after being that first-round pick. Stephon Tuitt retired, which is going to hurt that front four, but they still have great players on this front four we'll talk about in a minute. Juju's gone. There was trade rumors for years. He's finally gone out the door. Now he's in KC. Part of the reason they drafted Pickens in Austin to replace him. And like I mentioned, Joe Hayden's also out, which bumps Levi Wallace, that new signing, probably into the CB1 position, even though he may not be a true CB1 on this team. Now we'll look at their strengths and weaknesses on this team. Strengths on this team. Tight end room for me. Pat Freiermuth that they got out of the second round last year. He came in and was very solid. PFF had him ranked as ninth best tight end last year. So that was in his rookie year with Big Ben. So they look to probably have him grow even more, especially with new quarterbacks coming in, whether it be Trubisky or Pickett. Should show some more growth this year. The fact that he's paired with Zach Gentry, makes this tight end room very solid for sure, and definitely a strength to this offense. Then you look at all the rest of the offensive weapons that they have around the tight ends. Deontay Johnson, very great, very good to great wide receiver. Chase Claypool, he was great his rookie year, but fell off last year. We'll discuss in a minute. But then they bring in George Pickens. If Pickens and or Austin can hit in their rookie season, the receiver room is going to be very good for a strength to be this offense for sure for Trubisky or Pickett. And then they have Najee Harris. Don't forget about him. They had the horrible O-line last year, but they do bring in Najee Harris. Problem is, he only averaged 0.93 yards before contact per rush last year, which is the lowest in the NFL out of 43 qualifying running backs over the last 2 seasons. So, he could only go up from there, one would assume, especially with this O-line. This O-line cannot be as bad. So look for improvement from Najee Harris. More time for Mitch Trubisky or Pickett in the pocket, even though it may be slim. Another strength for me is this front four. And the depth behind it. They have Defensive Player of the Year, T.J. Watt. They have Cam Hayward, who is amazing. They have underrated, like I spoke about earlier, Ogunjobi on the other side. And then they got Leal that they drafted for depth. I mean, Chris Wormley from Baltimore. I mean, all these players on this front four, I mean, it's very solid. So definitely a strength of this team is going to cause so much havoc for the quarterback, the opposing quarterback, I should say. But now we got to look at their weaknesses and what's going to hold them back this year. I mean, last year I just said that the front four was their strength. Last year it was a weakness, but the problem was is that they were ravaged with injuries. They gave up 5 yards per carry, which was the worst. I mean, they can't replicate that with these front four players. I don't expect it. I'm just stating that it was a weakness last year. Linebacker position could still be a point of weakness for his team. They've struggled over the last years trying to get that linebacker position solved. Miles Jack comes in. He was overrated, in my opinion, based on what he did in Jacksonville, but he could bounce back. But as of now, it's still an issue. Devin Bush is a liability everywhere, no matter where he's at on the field in that linebacker position. So I still want to see that and prove me wrong that they can be not a weakness for this team. Everybody knows about the O-line and the weakness that it is. I mean, it's improved compared to where it was at last year. They bring in James Daniels. I mean, they can't be as bad as what they were last year. So, I mean, but it's still a weakness, relatively speaking, for this team. They decided to go the youth route and just keep their young picks and try to build with them versus bringing in some solid veterans like teams like the Giants did. Talking about the rush, though, I mean, we know about Big Ben running for his life, but they only were able to get 3.8 yards per carry last year, which is 28th in the league. And then we still have the quarterback room position. Yeah, I think Mitch can come in and be solid or above average potentially, but it's still an unknown. It could be a weakness of this team since it's such an unknown for this team. Pickett, we'll see what happens. But I mean, until I see it on the field, I want to say it's a weakness of this team and what can hold them back. We basically already discussed the outlooks on both sides of the ball. The offense may be improved, but it's all going to be dependent on what the quarterbacks can do. Defense is going to be dependent on what the front four can do. Secondary is average, above average. They don't really have a CB1, which could limit them, especially in the AFC. Has so many, the entire league has so many great receivers that you're going to have to cover. They do have Minka to try to alleviate some of those issues in the secondary that they have, but we'll see what happens. I expect both sides of the ball to be average, above average. Defense should be better than the offense, I would say. We'll see what will happen this year. So projected wins and their predictions. So Vegas has them at 7.5 wins. Run through their schedule real quick. Discuss each week's matchup. Week 1 they play the Bengals. The Bengals are still on that high from the Super Bowl. Don't think whoever's the starter is going to be able to compete with them as far as the quarterback position week 1. Week 2, they do get the Patriots. Patriots are going to struggle mightily on offense. They still haven't named the offensive coordinator. Joe Judge, Matt Patricia, Bill Belichick. Do you want any of those calling your offense in a second-year quarterback, Mac Jones, who has some of the worst weapons in the NFL as far as receivers go? Steelers get the win. Week 3, they play the Browns. I think they get the win here, too. Probably going to be Philip Dorsett, I would believe, starting at quarterback. But the main focal point of this week is going to be this front four against Philip Dorsett and making him run for his life. And I feel like the Pittsburgh defense can carry them to a win this week. They do play the Jets in week 4. I mean, the Steelers should win this game, I should say. But, I mean, it's going to be up and down with Trubisky or Pickett. It's not like they're going to come in and be all-pro players at the quarterback position in their first year in this offense. So I do feel like they're going to have their hiccups. They may pick up a loss here. The Bills are Super Bowl favorites. We don't need to discuss this. I mean, it would be a surprise if the Steelers can win this game. 2 and 3, follow that up with a relatively hard schedule. The Bucs. They're NFC title favorites, or one of the top favorites for sure in the NFC. So another hard matchup for them. I mean, we're not expecting greatness out of Pickett or Trubisky this early on in the season. So then they have the Dolphins and the Eagles, 2 back-to-back games where they're both away. I do feel they can split and get one of these games. Which one, I don't want to say, because one of these teams are going to be on the come-up and going to be playing definitely for playoffs, both of them potentially. So we'll say they split these two. So now they go into the bye at 3 and 5. If Trubisky, sorry, if Pickett isn't in at this point, I do believe he gets to start after this bye week. Is 9 weeks into the season, and that he can prep for the Saints. Saints defense still probably too good for Pickett if he comes in at this point. I still predict that they lose this game. But this is where I feel like the Steelers can get on a win streak going into the end of the season. They're 3-6, but they play the Bengals on Sunday Night Football in Week 11. I mean, they made a lot of key additions, but I don't think their defense is as good as it's made out to be. Offense is going to be great, but the defense is going to be what their limiting factor is. Steelers get the win here, start to bounce back under Pickett, play the Colts on Monday Night Football. Colts improved, but their offense cannot compete with Pittsburgh's defense, in my opinion, especially front four. So back-to-back wins. Good thing is they follow that up with the Falcons, who may be the worst team in the league, still be to be determined on what Ritter can do. And this defense is absolutely horrible in Atlanta. Could be the worst defense in the league. Will be a coming out party for Pickett for sure. They do play the Ravens. We all know no matter how good the Ravens are, the Steelers are going to compete against them. I foresee a split with them for sure, like happens almost every year. It's rare that one team sweeps the other team. So we're going to say the split here, get the win here, surprise them on the road. Follow that up with Baker, Darnold, Corral, P.J. Walker, Cam Newton may be back at this point as quarterback in Carolina. Carolina's not good enough to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, it was a given win before the Baker trade. I still think that the Steelers can get the win, get 5 wins in a row, rattle off some wins going into the end of the season. However, at the end of the season, it could be problematic schedule-wise for them. They play the AFC North Raiders. I've spoken in my other videos how the AFC West Raiders. AFC West, they have to get wins no matter who they're playing against outside of their division. That division is going to be a dogfight every week, in and out. Raiders, Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs. Got to get their wins outside of the division. So unfortunately, it's a loss for the Steelers. Then play the Ravens. I already spoke about the split with them, and they play the Browns. Could Deshaun Watson be back at this point? Like I said, for week 4, there's still going to be hiccups regardless of who's at quarterback and this offense. So I give them the loss here. With that said, that means they're going to go 8-9, above the Vegas predictions of 7.5. Still probably looking on the outside in with the wild card spot. So I mean, it is what it is. 8-9. That'd be great if that predicts that if Pickett can come in and show that he's the quarterback for the future. I'm sure Steelers fans will take an 8-9 season if they know they have their quarterback for the next 10 years. So we'll see what happens for sure. Would love to be proved wrong, but we'll go from there. All right, top players in their position. Each video, I look at the positional players, who can be a top 5 in their position, who could be top 10. Top 5, easily T.J. Watt. We know Defensive Player of the Year last year. Would be surprised if he's not top 5 in his position this year. One I think can be top 5 is Cam Hayward. He doesn't get a lot of love. They do have T.J. Watt. He kind of gets overshadowed by him, but he's in my estimation, could easily be a top 5 interior lineman for the Steelers and in the NFL. So obviously those two, but talking about top 10, Minkah Fitzpatrick could also be top 5, but he's definitely going to be top 10. Najee's, I feel, could be top 10, but his rate limiting factor is going to be the O-line. If he had a great O-line, I would say he'd be top 5 for sure. But we'll see what he can do, see if he can improve upon what he had last year, which I'm not blaming any of that on him, more on the O-line. Okay, so now we look at MVP candidates and most improved player candidates on this team. MVP candidates, defensive player, obviously. T.J. Watt, we've discussed him over and over, sack leader. I don't expect anything different this year. Most improved player, I want to say, look at the O-line and say Dan Moore. He improved throughout the season, and the O-line around him should slightly improve by bringing in James Daniels, and their improvement should precipitate over to him and improve him as well. So in my estimation, he could be the most improved player on this team. Looking at the best and worst outcomes for this team, best outcome is that Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett come in and show that they can be a franchise quarterback for the future and carry this team to a division title potentially. I mean, defense can come in and be a Pittsburgh defense that they've always been known for. these wide receivers can hit in the draft. Claypool can bounce back from where he was at last year, and Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett can be a top 15 quarterback, top 20, and they could rattle off some wins and flip a few of those games and be 10-7 and potentially win that division. I mean, not to say it's gonna happen, but it's the potential of it being there, especially under Mike Tomlin. Worst outcome is that the quarterbacks are horrible. They don't hit on either. The O line is still as bad as it is last year. They end up winning 5 to 6 games due to those limiting factors on the offense. I feel the defense is going to be fine, but the offense is the big question mark. Every video I pick a potential drop off candidate. Mine's Chase Claypool. Last year he struggled at times throughout the season, and I'm afraid it may continue regardless of quarterback play. He had that great rookie season. People expected great things in season 2, but didn't get them. So if I had to pick one, I want to watch and see what Chase Claypool can do and if he's going to be a drop-off candidate. And then we end the episode on most intriguing things. For me, the most intriguing thing is the quarterback room outcome. We've discussed it ad nauseum throughout this video about who's going to be the starter, Pickett, Trubisky, what's the future look like in Pittsburgh with the quarterback room. So I'm curious to see what they can do. And then is the O-line, can they at least be mediocre? If they can be mediocre and protect Trubisky, Pickett, and give Najee some running lanes, this offense could flip the script, like I said, and possibly lead this team to a division title. It's going to be a cluster in the AFC North, so 10-7 could get you the division title for sure. But this O-line has to be average at minimum for them to do that, I would say. So that's our preview of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hope you like it if you've made it this far. And if you have made it this far, please hit that like button. Please hit the comment button. Let me know what I can do better, what you agree with, disagree with. And please hit that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. And we're going to go through the rest of the league before kickoff, halfway through at this point, and I'm going to continue putting out these videos. But until then, catch you on the next one.